Hey everybody, I'm here today with Gervase Bush, who I believe I met like probably, I don't know, 9 years ago. And it's 10, and it's been a fantastic relationship and a way to get to know each other. We're here today to talk about this book, The Team Discovered, Dialogic Team Coaching, which came out 4 years ago. And I wanted to check in with Jervis about how the book series he and Bob Marshak have gone, but also just talk briefly about this book and what we're doing next with it. So Jervis, welcome. It's good to see you again.
Thank you. Thanks. Thanks for asking about the books. They're doing fine, I think. I mean, nobody makes money selling books, but we are, I think, creating a language, a common language. And your book has been one of the really, I think, highlights of the series for me anyway. I learned so much from you, and I keep taking those lessons into other books. And we can talk about those, but I'm curious, Ben, what, you know, that book came out just as lockdown was taking place, and what was it like for you to launch a book in the face of COVID? Uh,
It was so crazy. 2019 was I was so engaged writing this book, working with you and Bob, talking about publishing it. And I think by March of 2020, I was all ready to go. And then you said it would come out in May. And it came out to this existential crisis. Like it was all about where do you buy your masks and can you buy enough toilet paper and the people who are dying every day. And the book, we had book events planned, like local launches, and cancel everything. Um, and frankly, the this topic of like team coaching even dried up. Clients weren't even interested in the effectiveness of their leadership teams. Everybody was just in a very, very different place. And so we did some things, but I think in essence, we never really did much. And so it was such a letdown. Having written my first book and like got really jazzed and having you edit it and publish it, and then to go from that into the void, I think was, oh, I'd never want to do it again. But it was also, it taught us a lot. But um, it was a shock, and it's been 4 years of learning since then.
yeah. Well, if the title of the book had been How to Manage a Remote Team, we would have sold a ton of
Yeah,
them. In about 6 months, we published a book on running transformative events online, sold a ton of them for about 6 months, and now they don't sell at all. So it would have been a sort of more of an immediate hit wonder. But to me, it's the kind of book that will just continue to sell for a long time. People will keep discovering it, and there's a lot of wisdom in it. And yeah, it's one of those slow boil, but always boiling kind of books, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, but I'm also applauding you for wanting to kind of re-engage with putting it in front of people, getting a wider audience because it certainly deserves one.
Yeah, thank you. I've been fascinated by these last 4 years. Look, you and I both know this has not sold tens of thousands of copies, but actually, I'm intrigued. Every month, I get two, three, four, five people from around the world who say, "I stumbled across your book. I heard about Bush and Marshak's series, and I found yours, and it was one of the ones I ordered and read." Or I just got stuck with a team coaching engagement. I don't know what to do. And I read your book, and there's all sorts of hints in here about how I can approach it from this perspective. Then I talked to these folks in the last couple of weeks. A woman in Mumbai, India, a gentleman in Melbourne, Australia, somebody in Oxford, England, uh, and and what I'm finding is like this community out there I never knew existed. It's not a community; it's a whole bunch of people trying to do this work with this mindset who read the
Mhm.
book and they say, like, I feel like I'm home. Like this is what I do. I just have never heard it described before this way. And every I get off these calls and I'm like, we're not in community. We're not we're
Mhm.
not in dialogue. People read, we have actually non-dialogic experiences. People read the book and then they sit and they wonder what they can do with it, but we're not in dialogue about it. And I think that's the thing I want to shift.
Mhm.
If there are hundreds or thousands of us around the world who actually think this way, work this way, practice this way, why not start talking together about what that looks like? So that's what we're going to do. Fourth birthday of this book, and start a conversation.
Well, I think there are thousands around the world, and that's been one of the most satisfying things for Bob and I since we started this whole dialogic OD generative image is to discover how many people have responded saying, I finally found, something that describes what I do. Uh, and I agree with you, and it is a global tribe, and it is hard to find like, other people to be in conversation with if you don't already have that group with you. So I applaud you wanting to create that. And I think you'll find there's a lot of takers, and I'm willing to support making that happen too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I think it's just also this belief, like better late than never. Like,
Mhm.
I think there's another book in me and I think it's going to come out. And I'd love to have this one more widely
Mhm.
digested and metabolized and have an impact. And so we're going to start a global book club in June for 6 weeks because there's 6 parts to the book. And I think people who see this video or get the email or the LinkedIn post will have an opportunity to say, count me in. You know, for a small entry fee, I want a part of this dialogue. I want to network with people around the world. I want to talk about these concepts and learn together. So that's the aspiration. Just keep the dialogue going, and why not now? So
Yeah. No,
why not?
sounds like a great
We're gonna
idea.
get
A lot of people show up. Uh,
yeah.
yeah. For me, like your book has really shifted how I think about how to use data in a dialogic way. And the problems with our old ways of doing it, which I had some thoughts about that, but you really crystallized them for me and added some new ones. And I'm in a conversation right now about another book for our series, which is around survey feedback and doing that dialogically. And again, I just keep referencing the Team Discovered as an important source for how to think differently about how we feedback data, how we use that data, what the data even means, and that it's really about making meaning, not discovering something that was hidden from view.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even and the data itself and our use of it is in and of itself a narrative.
Yeah.
It's our bias towards, I don't know, a scientific approach, which I'm all science myself, but I think after all these years, I haven't seen that one compelling science of teams that fixes everything, where people don't need to be in dialogue and there's some white coat pharmacist who comes along and prescribes 12 doses of teams and then you're all set. It just,
Right.
the meaning making can be aided by data
Mhm.
and models. And they work phenomenally well together in their right place, in the right way. And I think that's the craft of team coaching from a dialogic perspective.
Yeah, I agree with that. I recently used that logic with a group that was trying to form some policy and, used a kind of data collection. Here's some data, but not like the data is teaching us, telling us what to do. The data just becomes this concrete object around which a whole conversation can then take place. And it's, the conversation that's the important part. The data,
Yeah.
you know, yeah.
I was with the CEO a couple of weeks ago, and there were 8 leaders on this leadership team, and we were kicking off our process. And the
Mhm.
CEO said, "I have no idea, no doubt that when we get done with this 4-hour session, the 8 of us will have 10 different opinions of what was said here." And it's like, yeah, it will be, and the meaning making behind the stories and the filters and the aspiration. That's the fun part. That's where we really get into
Yeah,
I don't know, the juice of it all. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So this relaunch plan you have, what are you hoping to eventually accomplish with it? What's
I,
your
you know, for
vision here? Your big goal, big hairy goal?
First and foremost, I think, is to create a place for those of us who care about this topic. It's kind of
Mhm.
nichey, but that's okay. We get to be a little niche. We get to be a community. We get to come together and talk about this and explore it. Personally, I think I have so much to learn from practitioners around the world. And I look forward to hearing the stories. Like, how are you using this? What are you doing? What challenges do you face? Um, and secondarily, I think this next book that's inside of me, and I'm looking to have it emerge in the next year or so.
Uh,
I'd love to be in dialogue with people who care about these topics, about teams, about the benign neglect of teams, about the ways in which we can fashion new things in this day and age to help meet teams where they're at. I'd like to be in conversation with these folks. there's ideas percolating here, and I'd love to bounce them off people eventually, and keep charting our path forward. Um, and Gervase, it's always been, let's let's see these teams for what they are. These are our crucial, really important meaning making social ecosystems that we exist in, and they get mostly ignored. So let's change that. That's kind of a more global mission.
Yeah. And I think teams are becoming ever more important. Um, and how we manage them, how we, one of the things in the course I teach in the executive MBA program, the point I make to them is like, you know, 50 years ago, we shifted our thinking about how we organize from roles to teams. But what we basically did was we took what had been a role and we took that same thing and now made it the responsibility of a team, and with a supervisor and that sort of thing. And then we moved from that, and there was good reasons for doing that. And the main one was, how do we manage the need for flexibility and control simultaneously? And the team is our best shot at doing that because the team is small enough to be flexible and yet it controls its members, right? Naturally. And then we move from that to self-managing teams where we tell the team what outcome we want, but we leave it up to the team to figure out how to accomplish that outcome. And now we're in a time where we're seeing increasing amounts of self-organizing teams, where we leave it up to the team to figure out for itself what it ought to be doing. And that teams form and disband around specific projects or products or services, right? And so that's just increasingly complex. The requirements on those teams are increasingly complex and require a set of skills and a way of thinking about how to be in team, and occasionally require a third party to come in and help work through some stuff, and and without that, I just shake my head. Like, I don't know, recently in the news, Bayer, which is a huge German pharmaceutical company, right? Most people know Bayer aspirin, um, has announced that it's firing all their middle managers because people in the front lines are smart enough to manage themselves. They know what to do, right? And so this is going to be great. And I think, well, like maybe, I mean, I don't know, Bear. Like, have they spent a lot of time teaching these frontline scientists how to actually be in teams with each other? I don't know. It'd be interesting to follow that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sense that the middle of organizations is the problem is virtually always wrong. You constructed these, I'm now speaking to higher ups. You constructed these organizations, you set the structure, you inculcated people into a culture, you hired these folks. And if you find now that these middle managers or these teams are not effective, what in the world did you do to them to make them this way?
Mm.
Like, and if we could refashion the container and the expectations and the lived experience
Yeah.
of teams and managers and equip them, what immense things are possible. But we don't do that yet. And that's signaling a little bit about the next book where I want to end with this, which is if somebody needs a practitioner to come and help, more than happy to help, do it all the time. But we will only, if you took all the team coaches or consultants in the world and you put us all together and you apply this against all the teams that exist in the world, we'd probably cover about 0.0001%.
Yeah.
And it's the other 99.999% where actually the value is created and where we have to begin to attend. So I'm foreshadowing, but that's where I want to go next.
Well, I hope you have a great time with it. I'm sure everybody who gets engaged with it is going to come away having gotten a lot of value.
Travis, thank you. I really appreciate this conversation today. And in some ways, your patience for over these 4 years for me to get to this point. And look, the future is bright and now's the time. So thank you. I really appreciate your support as a publisher and as a friend.
Hmm. My pleasure, Ben. It's great to know you.
All right. Take care.